بسم الله الرحمن
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. Before we start the new lesson, any questions from last week?
Sheikh, I have this question regarding Ta'anit al-Sakina.
Okay.
When we have the sukun on top of ta, we did mention in the class that it would be a silent ta, but it's not comparable to the English silent letters or alphabets like when we have knife or night. So will it be like that, or we are just calling it silent regardless of we are pronouncing the sound of ta, kalat? We'll be saying kalat, but we are still calling it silent because of the sukun on it.
Yeah, so when we say silent, is it means we do not give it any of the three diacritical marks, meaning it does not have any harakat. You still pronounce it. Just like, I mean, the example you gave was really good. So when you say knife, yes, the K is not pronounced at all, right? So, but the F part, the F is pronounced, but it does not have any, any vowels, short vowels or long vowels, right? You just pronounce the F without any vowels attached to it. So when we say the silent in Arabic, it's more like the F and knife and not the K, right? So you pronounce the letter, but you do not give it any diacritical marks. And it has no harakas. So, and we call that sukun
Oh, all right.
we call that sukun in Arabic. Haraka in Arabic means it moved. Haraka means moved, and sakana means stood still. So when we say haraka, like it's because why? It's because you have to move your tongue, right? Extra, other than pronouncing. Aside from pronouncing the actual letter, you have to give it a few more twists, right? Use a, I, u, ba, bi, bu. So and then second, I mean, it means once you pronounce the letter, you stop, you stand still. You don't have to give it that extra effort to pronounce the diacritical marks. So you use just your tongue or your mouth is still after you pronounce the letter. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So any more questions? Okay, so if no more questions, Brother Fayez had asked me to map the Arabic parts of speech to English parts of speech, and I added a slide here for that in case you guys want to refer back to it. So let me just give it a title. Okay. So when we say a noun in Arabic, obviously I gave you the definition of a noun, right? Who remembers the definition of a noun? As we spoke about it in Arabic, as provided to us by Arab grammarians. What is an ism in Arabic? Ism. So an ism is a word that conveys meaning independently, and it is not tied to any of the tenses.
To any of the tenses, right?
Exactly, to any of the tenses. That is the definition of a noun in Arabic, and it encompasses many parts of speech in English. So what I gave you was the definition of a noun in Arabic, but that definition encompasses so many parts of speech in English. So what are those parts of speech that it encompasses? A noun, obviously. A noun in English is like John, Mecca, right? A pronoun would be like he, she, him, her. An adjective would be like great, small, happy, right? An adverb would be such as very or quickly. So these these four, noun in English, pronouns in English, adjectives in English, and adverbs in English, all of these four fall under the noun, fall under an ism. A verb is very easy to memorize. Like I told you last week, a verb maps one-to-one. So a verb in English is a verb in Arabic. No, there's really nothing to it. And a particle in Arabic maps to three parts of speech in English. Prepositions, such as from, to, on. That is why when we were talking about the particles of khafd, we had all these examples, right? From, min, ila, ala, right? And it also encompasses conjunctions, which such as, like, these are particles that you use to attach a few things, right? For example, you say John and Peter, right? That and part is a conjunction. And then or, for example, or is another conjunction. You say John or Peter, right? And then the last part of speech that maps to a harf in Arabic is are the articles. For the definite article, the indefinite article, like the, a, and. So all of these map to what? Map to harf. So we have ism, we have fi'al, and then we have harf in Arabic, right? These were the three parts of speech in Arabic. These were the three main parts of speech in Arabic. And as we will see, all of these categories, or all of these subcategories have their own chapters, specifically written to describe them in this book and other books. But the main categories in Arabic, the main categories of parts of speech are ism, fi'al, and harf. Okay, so as Brother Muhammad said, we'll leave all the questions till the end. So please start jotting down all your notes, all your questions, and then at the end we'll get to all of them. And now let's continue with our lesson. So last week we spoke about nouns, verbs, and particles, and we mentioned some of the signs for each, right? Some of the main signs for each. So how do you differentiate? How do you identify a noun in a sentence? How do you identify a verb in a sentence? How do you identify a particle in a sentence? And that is the first. Basically, with any language, that is the first thing you need to find out, right? And as I told you a couple of weeks ago, even computers, that is how they try to understand your query that you type in. They first try to differentiate, identify the parts of speech. That is the first thing they do, and then they go, try to figure out the synthetic and the semantic meanings. But that is the first thing that we need to do. So that is why the author starts by telling us the signs of these three parts of speech, and then he moves on. Once he has given us this background, he moves on. Let me find the slides, one sec. Okay, he moves on and starts actually talking about inflection. And inflection is pretty much what Arabic grammar is. So if I was to sum Arabic grammar in one word, I would just say Arab, right? Obviously, there are many other aspects to Arabic grammar, but Arab is like the centerpiece, and everything else that we'll study revolves around the Arab, right? Because that is what we are trying to learn here. We're trying to learn how to properly speak Arabic, and to properly speak Arabic, we need to know Arab. And what is Arab? I mentioned this. I think in our first class, I tried to explain it briefly. Inshallah, today we will take a significant amount of time to talk about the Arab, and inshallah, make sure that you understand it. So what does the author say? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. الإعراب هو تغيير أواخر الكلم لاختلاف العوامل الداخلة عليها لفظا أو تقديرا. Roughly it translates to al-i'rab, which you can either call it inflection in English or declension. Al-i'rab is the implicit or explicit changing of the end of words, meaning changing of the last syllable to the due to the changing of the agents that come before them. Okay, that is the meaning of i'rab and the terminology of grammarians. But what is i'rab linguistically? Because if you understand i'rab linguistically, it will make it easier for you to understand i'rab and grammar as well. Linguistically, i'rab is to make something manifest, to make something appear. Al-i'rab means al-izhar. Have you guys heard of the noun zahir? Zahara, zahir. It is very mentioned, and it's actually made this word has made its way to many of our languages from Arabic. We use it in Kurdish, you know, and in Persian it is used. It is maybe in Bangladesh and India or those Pakistan, those countries also it is used. So what does zahir mean? Zahir means something that is manifest, right? When you say this is zahir, meaning this is very obvious, you can see it. But why do we call so why do we call al-i'rab? Why do we call in this aspect of grammar al-i'rab, meaning to make something manifest? Because it makes the role of a word manifest to us in a sentence. Obviously, a word can take many roles in a sentence, right? A word can be a subject, it can be a predicate, it can be an adjective, it can be as we call a hal, which would be more like an adverb in English. So it could be many things, right? So how can we distinguish? How do we know in Arabic what is an adjective, what is an adverb, what is a predicate, what is a subject? And we know this through the last part of a word. We look at the haraka, the diacritical mark or the letter at the last part of the word, and that letter, the last part of the word, will tell us the role of a sentence. So what is it doing? Essentially, it is making manifest the role of the role of a word. It is making manifest the role of a word in a sentence. It is making it clear to us. Because in Arabic, as you will see, you can do so many different things. You can bring the predicate before the subject. You can bring the doer, the verbal subject before the verb. You can have so many variations in which are not possible in English. That is why in English it is not, we are not in need of inflection to differentiate, identify what that word is. For example, when I say Peter hit John, we know Peter is the subject and John is the object, right? Peter came first, but if I say John hit Peter, what does that mean? Can I tell you, make the claim that what I'm telling you is that Peter hit John? No, because the order matters, right? When Peter comes first, that is the subject. And when John comes after the verb, you know that is the object, and you don't need inflection to tell you that. But when I say ضرب عمرو زيدا, the example goes the opposite. ضرب زيد عمرا. ضرب زيد عمرا, which means Zayd hit Amr. I can also say ضرب عمرا زيد, which also means the same thing. But did you see how I switched the places? The first at first I said ضرب زيد عمرا. Zaydun is the subject. Zayd hit Amr. And then I said ضرب عمرا زيد, meaning what? Meaning it means Zayd hit Amr. you see how we switch the role, like they switch the place of the words? So because it is Arabic, it is so easy to do that, and it is permissible to do that. You need something else to be able to differentiate between the role between the roles, yeah, to identify the rules. And how do you differentiate those roles? Through Arab, through the last part of the word, to the from the last. You look at the last letter of the word, and you see what diacritical mark it has, and then from that you know whether it is a subject or an object. So now I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna write the same thing. I will go ahead and write this, which will make it more clear to you, inshallah. Let me. Okay. So English is obvious, right? We don't have we understand that when Peter comes before the verb, it tells you that he's a subject. But in Arabic, now I will go ahead and write the same thing that I told you in Arabic. Okay, make it bigger. Okay. ضرب زيد عمرا. Okay, let me put the diacritical marks for you as well. ضرب زيد. Okay. Okay. So here, Zaid remains the subject in both examples. Zaid remains the subject, and Amr remains the object. Can someone tell me how can you differentiate between the two? Can someone see a difference between Zaid and Amr that would tell you that they're different?
The diacritical mark on top of the last letter of the words.
Exactly. Yes. You see how the last letter changes, the diacritical mark changes from Zaid to Amr. For Zaid, we have damtan, or two dhammas, or a tanween, basically, as we said. But al-dhamma and a noon. And then for Amr, we have also tanween, but not al-dhamma and a noon, fatha and a noon. Like I said, in tanween, the noon is pronounced, but it is not written, right? Remember I told you last week. Tanween in the tanween, a noon is pronounced, but it is not written. So the same diacritical marks make it here to our second example, which tells us that Amr is the object. So this is inflection. This is what we're studying, right? So obviously back in the old days, and so basically what happened was, because it was once non-Arabs became Muslim and they started reading the Quran or practicing the religion, because it was hard for them to basically to know what is what in a sentence. These diacritical marks were added to the mushafs, to the Qurans, right? So basically right now, these diacritical marks make it very, very for us non-Arabs to understand the Quran. But Arabs were in a different league, so they could tell without these diacritical marks. Okay. So if the question, yes.
But also, as I can see that you change the name, the position of the subjects and the objects. Like for example, Zaidun Amran is in the first sentence, whereas the second sentence is Amrun wa Zaidan. So
Yes.
does it also depend on that, or only the diacritical marks?
Okay, good point. So as I said, in English that matters. The order matters, right? In Arabic, when it comes to grammar, the order doesn't matter. So you and this is perfect. Both of them are perfectly sound, and both of them mean the same thing. Yes, brother Radwan.
Sorry, Ustad. Fahad got disconnected, so he's trying to join the meeting again. Yes.
Oh, I apologize. One sec.
Just okay.
I guess he's here now. I guess he's here. I can see him in the list.
Okay, I just added him. No, I saw he was trying to connect.
Oh, okay.
Alhamdulillah that we're recording this, so I don't have to repeat what I said. Okay, so brother Haidar, can you just confirm that you're here? Yeah, brother Radwan, can you confirm?
Do you hear me?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
here.
Okay.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, sorry, I had some technical issues.
No problem. No problem. Okay, so let's continue with. Okay, so when it comes to grammar, both of these sentences are fine, and they both mean the same thing, meaning, and both Zaid is the subject and Amr is the object. When it comes to grammar, but when it comes, yes, brother Muhammad.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually lost this thing. Like, which is the diacritic signs that actually tell you that this is the subject and the object? Like, for example, is it the damma or the fatha?
Okay, so yes, so that is another topic that we'll study later, maybe in 3 weeks. We'll tell you exactly what are the signs of different inflections. Okay, Zoom is saying hi again. It's saying 10 minutes left.
And Sheikh, where's the verb in these sentences?
Where is the what? The verb. The verb is al-daraba. Al-daraba means hit.
Daraba. Okay.
Al-daraba. So in Arabic, the default position. So you have default positions in Arabic. The default position of a verb is to come first, after which the subject has to come, and after which the object has to come. This is the default. But you can, as you will learn in your studies, it is very Arabic is very flexible. So you don't always have to find the default order for it to convey different meanings. For example, if I say, I'm sorry, let me. If I say, Amran daraba Zaidun, or let me go back to the previous example. Daraba Amran Zaidun. If I say this, what does this indicate? Basically, in grammar, as I said, there is no difference, but in rhetoric, there is a difference. If you want to drive a point, if you want to make a point, make it very clear to the listener who's being hit. For example, the listener knows that Zaid is the subject. He's hitting, but the listener does not know it is Amr. So you bring Amr to the front, and you tell that you say Amr from the beginning, so that the listener, that confusion is removed immediately from the mind of from the thoughts of a listener, right? So it has the impact that it has. It will lift the confusion from the listener faster than if you were to say Daraba Zaidun. Okay, I know already Zaid is hitting. Tell me who's being hit. Amran. But if you say Daraba Amran, he's like, oh, okay, I got it. You don't have to tell me Zaid. I know already that Zaid is hitting. So that is a rhetorical a benefit of this, and that is why the Quran is is so baligh, so eloquent, because you can you see all of these different ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conveying meanings, and each meaning is directed to a specific audience, or it is trying to convey a specific meaning in which you would not be able to convey that very specific meaning in other languages, because Arabic is so flexible like this. And it is probably the most beautiful language that you could study. So
so Sheikh, the change of order, would it change the way the meaning is being portrayed?
So as I said, the meaning,
yes.
the meaning as far as whether who is the subject and who is the object, that does not change. But as far as the emphasis, are you putting emphasis on the subject, the doer, or the object? That does change. In the first one, you're putting emphasis on the subject because you're mentioning him first. In the second one, you're putting emphasis on the object, because object is being mentioned first, and it is actually a stronger emphasis, because to do this you have to go against the default position, the default order. And when you break the rules to convey a meaning, when you break the default rules to convey a meaning, it indicates something much powerful than when you just follow the rules. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's clear now, sir.
Okay. Okay, so that is Arab. What we are learning right now is how the end of a word changes, why, to know the role of a word in a sentence. That is what we're trying to do, right? Now I believe Arab may be clearer to you now. So let me go back and read the definition. So and you tell me if it's clear right now or not. So what is Arab? Al-Arab, or inflection, is the implicit or explicit. The reason the author mentions implicit or explicit, because sometimes the Arab is obvious, you can see it, and sometimes it is implicit, but the implicit part is very rare. The implicit part is very rare, and you're not expected to know the implicit parts as of now, because this is a bit advanced. But just know that inflection is either implicit or explicit. So I'rab inflection is the implicit or explicit changing of the end of words, right? Zaydun, Amran, Amran, Zaydun, right? Due to the changing of the agents that come before them. Due to the changing that agents that come before them. Now here I need to explain this part a bit more. What does this mean? Due to the changing of the agents that come before them. So in our example, just I don't expect you to know this, but can someone guess what is the agent in these sentences? Yes, brother Muhammad.
The word,
subject,
the beginning and the end, for example, daraba, daraba, remains the same.
Yeah, so that is the agent. Yes, in this case, the agent does not change. But see, the thing is with verbs, basically verbs are a category, are probably one of the main agents that impact the inflection of a word, right? Verbs impact the inflection of a word. So how do verbs impact the inflection of words? Basically, a verb will always make sure that the subject has the inflection of rafa, and the object has the inflection of nasab. And we will talk about these 4 different inflections. So there are 4 different inflections in Arabic. There is rafa, there is nasab, there is khafad, and there is jazm, which we will talk about shortly in maybe in 20 minutes. And these 4 inflections basically are what we will study, inshallah. So what does a verb do as an agent? It gives its subject the inflection of rafa, and it gives its object the inflection of nasab. That is what an agent does. Now, if I was to change the agent, and say, for example, or let me give you a better example here. If I would say, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble finding these letters and diacritical marks. Okay, so so the first, I want you to compare the first sentence and the last sentence. Do you see a difference between the two Zaids?
Yes.
What happened? The diacritical mark changed, right? So
Yes.
here we have a tanween, a dhamma, and a noon, and here we have a tanween but a fatha and a noon. So the diacritical mark changed. So here what it means is daraba Zaydun Amran. As I told you, Zayd hit Amr. What does this mean? Inna Zaydan Karimun. Indeed, Zayd is generous. Indeed, Zayd is generous. So why did diacritical mark change from here to here? Because what? Can you see it? Yes, Brother Muhammad.
Because it's not dealing with the verb anymore, it's dealing with an adjective.
Oh, very good, very good. So basically, you have 75%. You had it from 75% right. It is not dealing with verbs anymore, meaning the agent is not a verb anymore, right? And the agent here, as we will read, this is one of the particles. The okay. So we are recording again. Where did we leave off? We left off talking about the change in the agents that occurred here, right? So here we saw from Zayd here was marfu', as I said, and here it is mansub. Here it has a dhamma and a noon. It has a tanween, which is dhamma, which is a dhamma and a noon, and here is a tanween, which is a fatha and a noon. So what caused this change in the inflection? The agent. The agent here was daraba. It changed to this agent, which is inna. It is a particle of emphasis, right? So, and what inna does, it makes the subject mansub. That is what inna does. It makes the noun that comes after it mansub. So that is the job of that agent. So each agent has its own job, just like different people in the society have different roles, different jobs. For example, a person makes cars, a person makes bread, a person is a farmer. All right. So there are so many different agents in a society, each of which is tasked with a particular thing. And in grammar, in Arabic grammar, you have so many of these agents, and each of them has impacts the inflection in a different way. Right. Think of agents as basically as words that change the inflection of words, and these agents could either be verbs or particles. Either verbs or particles, or they could also be implicit, meaning not mentioned. Okay, so let's go back to the definition. Let's see if it makes more sense now. So what is i'rab? Al-i'rab is the implicit or explicit changing of the end of words due to the changing of the agents that come before them. So what is it that is causing this i'rab, this inflection? It is the changing of agents. So it is the agents that is causing the i'rab, is making is basically the agent is tasked with changing the inflection from one type of inflection to another, right? Now going back to the linguistic meaning, it is to make something manifest, right? And as I explained to you, by knowing the different inflections, you learn the different roles that those words play in a sentence. I will stop talking about i'rab, the definition of i'rab, and we'll move on to talking about the different parts, the different types of i'rab. But before we move on, I know we said we will leave all questions till the end. But if there's anything you feel like you need to know before we move on, please ask. If you think something is crucial to know before you understand the next topic, you can ask now. But if not, inshallah, let's move on and talk. Go to the next slide.
Sheikh, the
Yes.
agents will always come before the inflected words, right?
The agents are yes, the agents are always before the inflected word.
Inflected words. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Good point. Good question. So the chapter of, we're still reading the same chapter, and the author continues by saying وَأَقْسَامُهُ أَرْبَعَةٌ, and the parts of speech are meaning the types of inflection are 4. The types of inflection are 4. What are those 4 types? رفع, نصب, خفض, جزم. These are the 4 types of inflection. I have the transliteration here: rafa, nasab, khafd, and jazm. Okay, these are the 4 different types of inflection, and I provided an example of each here just to have you have an idea, and I highlighted it. So this, can you guys see? Is it too small, or should I make it bigger? I can make it a bit bigger. Okay, can you guys see?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I'll do this for all of them, and then we'll move it back, change it back. Okay, let's talk about these 2 first. So rafa, linguistically it means raising. Rafa means raising. An example of rafa, the inflection of rafa is ja'a Zaydun. Zayd came. Remember in our previous example that I told you the verb always makes its subject marfu'. So here is another example. Ja'a is the verb, Zaydun is the subject, the verbal subject. So that is one type of inflection, ar-rafa. The second type of inflection is nasab. And nasab it linguistically means placing. When you place something, placing. An example for nasab is ra'aytu Zaydan. I saw Zayd. And again, from our previous example, I told you that the object is always what? Mansub, right? The object always gets the inflection of nasab. Just like in daraba Zaydun Amran. Amran was what? Amran was the object, right? And it had a fatha and a nun. It had the sign, the inflection of nasab. Here as well, when you say ra'aytu Zaydan, I saw Zayd. Zayd is the object. Who is the subject here? I saw Zayd. I, right?
Myself.
So Zayd, exactly. So Zayd is the object, and you are the subject. And Zayd, because it is the object, it is getting the inflection of nasab. Okay, now this one, let me change this back. Okay, marartu bi Zaydin. And this one is a good question for you. I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, marartu bi Zaydin. I passed by Zaid. And this is an example of khafd. Remember what I told you, khafd linguistically, it means lowering, right? So what do you do with, usually what happens with your lip when you pronounce this inflection? You lower your bottom lip. Bizaydin, din, right?
Yes.
So here, marartu bizaydin. What is this inflection? Khafd. This inflection is khafd. And how do you know? There's another sign here that tells you that it is khafd. It is preceded by one of the particles of khafd. Remember we said that ba is one of the particles of khafd, right? So here ba
Yes.
also tells you that this inflection is khafd. So when you say marartu bi zaydin, you automatically know by looking at the ba that the inflection of zayd is khafd. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now the next example is for jazm. Jazm, we have not seen any example. We saw jazm in the verses that I showed you last week, but we have not really explained what jazm is. So jazm is the fourth type of inflection. And one of the things about jazm, it is that it's specific to verbs, meaning nouns will not have this this inflection. An example that I give here is lam yaktub. He did not write. He did not write. And here yaktub is a verb. It is an imperfect verb. And it has the inflection of jazm. Why? Because before it, an agent of jazm has come. So before it, because this agent of jazm that comes before it, this yaktubu, this verb gets the inflection of jazm. And basically, inshallah, we'll talk about the agents of jazm. So each of these inflections have their own agents, and I think by the time when we reach the middle of the book, the author starts talking about telling us the different agents. So inshallah, we'll read about lam, but just for now, know that lam is an agent of jazm. That's all you need to know now. And that is why yaktub has the inflection of jazm. And basically, jazm linguistically means cutting off. Why? Because you're cutting off, you're removing all of the diacritical marks. You see how there's a sukun here? Yeah, you don't have, and that is what jazm does. It removes all the diacritical marks. Basically, that is in most cases. Obviously, there are exceptions, but in most cases, that is what jazm does. Okay. Any questions about any of this? Yeah,
No,
very easy. Yeah, all you need to memorize is four types of the Arab: Rafa, Nasab, Khafd, and Jazm. You don't need to know the details now because we will talk about the details later, inshallah. Okay. Next slide. Quickly, I mean, I think this is the last slide that we'll talk about, that we'll read, inshallah. The author says, فَلِلْأَسْمَاءِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الرَّفْعُ وَالنَّصْبُ وَالْخَفْضُ وَلَا جَزْمَ فِيهَا وَلِلْأَفْعَالِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الرَّفْعُ وَالنَّصْبُ وَالْجَزْمُ وَلَا خَفْضَ فِيهَا. So from these four types of inflection, we said there are four types of inflections, right? Rafa, Nasab, Khafd, and Jazm. Two of these are common between verbs and nouns, meaning both nouns and verbs, except two of these inflections. And what are those two? Rafa and nasab. So you can have a noun that is marfu, you can have a verb also that has rafa. You can have a noun that has nasab. You can also have a verb that has nasab. But khafd, which is the third type of inflection, is specific to nouns. So meaning a verb will never have khafd. That is why we said khafd is a sign of nouns in the first lesson that we had. And in the case of verbs, like I said, it does not have khafd, but it has jazm. Jazm is specific to verbs. A noun will not have jazm. So a noun will have rafa, nasab, and khafad, no jazm in it. And a verb will have rafa, nasab, jazm, and no khafd in it. And that is how I've explained it here. Nouns accept rafa, nasab, and khafad from the inflections, but not jazm. Verbs accept rafa, nasab, jazm from the inflections, but not khafd. Inshallah, we'll stop here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I think it's very straight. It's not that complicated at this point. Fairly straightforward. But you know, I don't want to scare you, but it will get complicated. And if you don't fully understand what we discussed today and in the past 2 weeks, the other chapters that we study will become very, very difficult. So this is think of what we have discussed as the foundation, and which you will build the other chapter, your understanding of the other chapters upon. Okay. But alhamdulillah, I believe it seems like you understood everything that was discussed, and if you understand this, inshallah, you'll have no problem following along. I know Brother Alim ad-Din had some trouble initially. Did you get in contact with Brother Mi'raj ad-Din and Mi'raj?
Yeah, I did. By the way, I just completed my final exam, so inshallah, I'm gonna sit from this week, and I'm gonna go over everything.
Okay.
And I'll be contacting with Brother Miraj and Brother Muhammad.
Inshallah, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. Then inshallah we'll stop here. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa atba'ihi.